So for the second season in a row, the Milwaukee Bucks will face the Miami Heat in the postseason. And last season, everyone expected the Bucks to beat the Heat, but Miami surprised a lot of people, defeating them in a measly 5 games. And you would think that Miami would be the favorites since they did just beat the Bucks last season, but for some reason, they're not. And I honestly think it will be a very close series. So in today's video, I'll be figuring out who I think will win the series between the Bucks and the Heat. The way I'll be doing this is by giving some reasons to why the Heat can win the series and some reasons to why the Bucks can win the series, and then at the end I'll come to my conclusion. But before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content, and tell me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers, and comment on this video so start a conversation with me as I do to respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. To start the video off, I'm going to give a reason to why the Bucks can beat the Heat, and it's simply because of how much better the Bucks are on offense compared to the Heat, because the Bucks literally have the 6th best offensive rating in the league, and they're first in points scored per game, meaning they're obviously an elite offense, whereas the Heat are the 18th best offense, which is actually below average. And there's a legitimate chance that the Bucks might just overwhelm them on the offensive side of the floor, as the Bucks are a team that is just filled with a plethora of 3-point shooters, as they have guys like Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Bryn Forbes, Brook Lopez, PJ Tucker, Dante DiVincenzo, and Pat Connaughton, who are all guys who defenses won't leave open in the postseason, and if they do leave them open, then they will most likely pay. Milwaukee also has made some new additions and added new shooters from the previous season, and I think those guys won't be missing wide open shots like previous players in last season, and this will allow Giannis to have more options to do when Miami puts the wall on him, because whenever he's double teamed or trapped in the paint, he can just kick it out to literally anyone on the floor and they can splash a 3-pointer. And when the difference in offense is this significant, you just can't ignore it, and it's clearly a huge advantage for the Milwaukee Bucks. It doesn't mean they'll automatically win the series, but it's definitely an advantage. But the first reason the Miami Heat can beat the Milwaukee Bucks is the fact that the Heat are the 7th best ranked defense in the league this season, and this was with many of their players missing a significant amount of time, so they could have probably been a top 5 defensive team if healthy. You also have to remember the Heat have a coach in Eric Spoelstra, who is a guy who is amazing at game planning for the opposing team. He honestly might be the best in the NBA at doing that, meaning he can possibly make a perfect game plan to slow the Bucks down, and more importantly, slow down Giannis Antetokounmpo. This Heat team is just filled with a bunch of defenders as well, as they have Jimmy Butler, who's a really good defender, Bam Adebayo, who's a top 10 defender in the whole NBA, Andre Iguodala is still a solid perimeter defender, Trevor Ariza is a solid perimeter defender, and this is just a team filled with great defense. They also have amazing chemistry. The Heat are missing a guy like Jay Crowder from last season, but they replaced him with a guy like Trevor Ariza. So in my opinion, there's a legitimate chance that they can make the Bucks struggle on offense at times, and not only do I think that there's a chance that that will happen, I honestly expect it to happen. So the Bucks will have to be hitting their shots against this Miami team, because they're going to come in with a great game plan and just straight up great defense. But in this series, the Heat aren't the only good defensive team, as the Bucks are a really good defensive team as well, as they rank 10th in the NBA in defensive rating, and the Heat already are not a great offensive team, and we combine that with the fact that the Bucks are a pretty good defensive team, it makes me really scared for how Miami's going to score points, because Milwaukee is filled with a plethora of good defenders, as they have guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, a top 5 defender in the league, Drew Holiday, one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, Chris Middleton is a pretty solid defender, Dante DiVincenzo is a good defender, and PJ Tucker is a really good perimeter defender as well. Milwaukee can match up very well against the Heat because they they have multiple guys who could be put on Jimmy Butler. Guys like Chris Middleton wouldn't do a bad job. Jrue Holiday is the best defender to be put on Jimmy, and I think that's who they will put on him. But when Drew's not on the court, Dante DiVincenzo could be solid, and so could PJ Tucker. The Bucks scheme didn't work at all last season when defending the Heat, since they allowed the Heat to get a lot of wide open 3-point shots. So hopefully this season they fix it. But a fear that I have is that they won't fix it, because their coach in Mike Budenholzer is a great regular season coach, but he's known for not making adjustments, especially in the playoffs. But if they do make the adjustments, they definitely will give problems to Miami on offense, and we will see multiple stretches and maybe even full games of the Heat just looking terrible on offense. The second reason the Miami Heat can beat the Milwaukee Bucks is simply because last season they did beat the Milwaukee Bucks, and on top of that they did it in embarrassing fashion. This is very important since it shows that predicting the Heat to win the series is something that can legitimately happen, and it's not a crazy thing to do. And they also have confidence versus the Bucks. Even if they didn't beat them last season, they would still have confidence. That's just how this Miami team is. But this year they should have even more confidence since they did beat them just last season, and the Heat didn't really lose anyone outside of Jay Crowder. Also, this is good because it shows the Heat have the perfect game plan to beat the Bucks, and if the Bucks don't make any adjustments, the Heat can beat them again. The third reason I think the Bucks can beat the Heat is the fact that they have Jrue Holiday. And you would think that I would give a whole reason to a singular player. It would have been Giannis Antetokounmpo, but that's kind of obvious. Obviously, if the Bucks are going to beat the Heat, it's going to be because Giannis was great. But the reason why Jrue Holiday is going to be a big reason for the Bucks winning, because last season the Heat's game plan against the Bucks worked so well, largely due to the fact that outside of Chris Middleton and Giannis, no one else on that team could create their own shot or create other shots for others. But now that the Bucks have added Jrue Holiday, they have a third guy who could create shots for himself and others, which I think in the postseason will prove to be very important, and especially against the Heat. But when Giannis is double teamed, Jrue can drive it to the basket and score for himself, or create a wide open shot for others, or he can just shoot the 3-pointer and make it. He's way bigger of a threat than Eric Bledsoe ever was for the Bucks, and I think that will prove to be very important. The third and final reason I believe the Miami Heat can defeat the Milwaukee Bucks is the fact that Miami is a team that I would trust more to close out games in the fourth quarter. If the game is close, I have more faith in the Miami Heat to win than I do with the Milwaukee Bucks, since we all know their best player in Giannis Antetokounmpo in the last 5 minutes of the game turns into a center with decent dribbling skills. He barely handles the ball at the end of games, which is definitely something I wouldn't want to put stock in. Chris Middleton is far from the best closer in the league. He's not terrible, but he's not the best. And Jrue Holiday actually is a solid closer, but Miami simply has more guys that I would trust in the clutch, as they have Jimmy Butler, who's a top 10 clutch player in the league. Most people have them in their top 5. They also have Goran Dragic, who was very clutch in last season's postseason for them, and he always seems to step up his game in big moments. And Tyler Hero, although he seems like a player who is pretty disliked right now for no reason besides the fact that his fans overrate him, he is a guy who can hit big shots and clutch shots. And even Duncan Robinson was a guy who last season was hitting big 3-pointers. So I trust Miami down the stretch of the games, and I think there will be a bunch of close games in this series. To conclude the video, I personally have the Milwaukee Bucks winning this series simply because I feel like the addition of Jrue Holiday will prove to be a huge addition, and it will counteract Miami's scheme. And I have the Bucks winning in 6 games, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went to 7. If I'm being honest, if Victor Oladipo didn't get injured, I honestly would have predicted Miami to win the series, because I feel like his shot creation ability and floor spacing could have been huge. But without him, I simply don't think the Heat will win. But they definitely have a chance, and I'm not counting them out. And it wouldn't be the craziest thing if they won again. I'm just not predicting it this season. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with what I said in the video. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want weekly NBA content, and tell me my goal of 1,000 subscribers. And comment on this video, start a conversation with me, as I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro.